Okay, I think it's recording. Alright, so hey guys, it's me, Nightshade. I know I said I was going to do a video like a lot earlier than this, but I got kind of sidetracked, but better late than never. So, I decided to do a voice reveal and a tutorial at the same time, so I guess we got the voice reveal down, so all that's left to do is the tutorial. Okay, so in the post that I posted where I was asked to do a tutorial, they asked me how I do my process when it comes to making my artwork, when it comes to making my work, and so this was the post that I got asked on, so this is the post this is the picture I'm going to be using. So first off, the hardware that I use is a Wacom drawing tablet and Paint Tool SAI. This is the software I use, the Paint Tool SAI. I just recently got a bamboo pen, but because I'm still getting used to it, I'm going to be using the drawing tablet for this, especially since I can't use the watercolor tool properly just yet on the in Paint Tool SAI. So yeah, let's just get into it. So I usually start out just with a multiply layer, just to get the skin. I always start with the skin first. And just get the right skin tone. I usually go for a more reddish tone, but sometimes I'll go like slightly between that. And it's always desaturated, mainly because of the fact that's just how I prefer it to be. And luckily with the Wacom pen, it's pressure sensitive. So depending on how hard I press, it'll change the opacity and the size of the size of the brush tip. Alright, now that that's done, I'm just going to clean up a little bit, and yeah, it looks like it's clean. So I'm actually going to be switching between both the bamboo and the Wacom pen, but I'm mostly going to be using the Wacom pen because I want to give like my best effort for this. And because I'm also still trying to get used to it as well, but I want to give the process that I use now, or the process that I've been using for the longest, so I'm going to be using the Wacom pen most. Also, if you hear something in the background, that's probably my roommates. They're still here. So, yeah, I've done the initial multiply layer. Then I'm going to make another multiply layer of that, and just going to color in with the same color, maybe a little bit lighter and a little bit more yellow. But I'm going to use the same color and go over the areas where I've shaded already, because I actually shade with my pencil first. Sometimes it just adds a bit of texture as well, as just makes it easier for me for certain things that I know I want to be cell shaded. Also, these express keys are here. So I pressed undo and redo. These express keys are your best friend, especially when you're doing quick work. What I usually used to do was I would just hit Control Z or Control Y, and that kind of helped, but in certain programs that's not always the same command. So I just got used to using express keys, and it's a very good idea to just get into using them and make it a habit. This button right here also is a really good idea to use, as opposed to having to switch to the eraser. It literally it takes away from what you originally laid down, while still keeping the same settings that you had for the brush originally. So it's literally like a built-in eraser. So it's still very good to use. It's a very good idea to use it. So I'm just going to reduce the opacity of this. There we go. And I'm going to shade over here as well. But one thing that I'm going to do afterwards is I'm going to actually make it darker underneath. Specifically because of when I did it first. The first time I did it, I realized that at the end, that this chin part right here blended in with underneath this and over here. so it looked like her chin was a little off. But I'm like, no, that's not how it actually was supposed to go. So I'm gonna fix that in this tutorial. So yeah, but make sure that whenever you want to have, like, you have shadows, but you want one area to be more defined against the other, that you use your colors, that you make sure that it's dark underneath one. So now that that's made darker and you can tell that those areas are there, there we go. I'm going to combine all of the multiply layers into one, so everything's still there. And I'm going to put another multiply layer over this. I use a lot of multiply layers whenever I do this, specifically because of the fact that they just layer very well over each other, as well as the fact that I can still keep the original outlining from my pencil. And I think I'm going to just change the hue a little bit, make it a little bit more yellow. There we go. So that I can use the blush more. Okay. Blush. I'm going to use a different texture brush for this. I call this one texture. I think another Instagrammer, yeah, I got it from her. Her name is Ralsei. She's an Instagram artist, and I got this one from her. She uses this quite a lot, especially for her certain textures. So I use this brush as well because it goes really well with the texture of the drawings that I do, especially when it comes to hair and blushing and just general areas where, like, you'd have, forget that last part. It's very good. I like the texture of it, and it helps me to keep the texture. I'm just gonna blend it in a little bit and possibly change the hue of it just so it can be a bit more red. There we go. Because actually humans have a lot of shades in their skin. So you have like purples, and believe it or not, you have blues and reds and a little bit of yellows. So those are good to have in there. So I've got that initial blush, and I'm going to combine that to the multiply layer again, so everything's still on the same layer. Next, I'm going to go through and just add a little bit more definition to certain areas and just colour that in with a little bit of shadows. So I'm going to put a multiply layer again, get the colour I used for this, and I'm going to just go over it again and define some of the more darker areas. Okay, now that I've done that, it was only like a small little bit that I had to do, but now I've done that, I'm going to combine the layers again, and I'm going to add just a little bit more blood flow to the face. We've got that, and I'm going to add it back to the multiply layer. Every single time I do something, I add it back to the multiply layer, mainly because it just helps to flatten out the image, and also it's a personal thing of mine. I just hate seeing stacks and stacks of layers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to do the eyes, and with the eyes I put that all in a folder because it's not all just multiply layers. So it actually starts out with the screen layer, and I'm going to put that for pass through so that everything I do can stay as it is. So it starts out with the screen layer, and it's an off-white color. So I'm just going to go slightly off, and then let's put a brown over there. And I'm going to start with a color similar to that. I'm just going to go for the bottom. I'm just going to, obviously I have to turn down the screen, the opacity first. And then after that, we're just going to do a slightly darker off-white color again, and it's going to go above the eye, well, in the top part of the eye. And then after that, we're just going to blend them together, so it's a slight gradient. You can't really tell, but it's a gradient to it. So we've got that. It's slightly bright, and maybe I'm going to just tweak it a little bit to see how you like it. I usually just give it a little bit of a lighter color, but I like to keep the skin tone underneath it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a multiply layer over the top. Sticking with the original palette I had before, I'm going to go orange, sort of, with the eye in here. Now it looks a little bit lifeless like this, so you're going to add some life to the eye. So a bit of luminosity layer. I'm going to take this up to the very top and take it down to that little small brush tip, and just paint the center of the eye like this. And then after that, a little bit more with the watercolor brush, just gonna brush in some lighter areas. So we've got some life in those eyes now, and I'm just going to collapse that. So now that we've got that, also actually let me do something. I'm going to add a little bit more definition to the sclera of the eye, which is like the white part, the white bit. We've got that, and let's collapse it back in. There we go. Now I'm just going to go through with the rest of the face. So what we're going to do first is actually, no, not the face, my bad, the hand. I have to shade in the hand. Okay, now that we've got a little bit of definition in the hand, let's go for the rest of this. So we've gotten in the general areas of the blush, but we still need some areas of more value. So I'm going to go with the screen layer, and let's go with a bit more red in this one. Make it light, and just, actually, how about we do this? A little bit more yellow, because again, human faces have a very large color range. So I'm just going to go there in the areas that will be lighter, that usually get more light than others. This area around here as well. The forehead gets a lot of sunlight. Especially if you have oily skin like me. Yeah. Aside from the self-depreciating humor, humans do produce oil through the skin. Some people produce a little bit more than others. So sometimes some areas like the bridge of your nose or your forehead will be particularly bright because of the fact that you have quite oily skin. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just sometimes you have to be a bit more careful. But when it comes to in matters of making artwork, sometimes an oily forehead can be quite good, because then afterwards you have a more definite or defined forehead, so you know what to do. So it has its perks, I guess. Over here. We've got that done. Let's get a few more areas. Down here. And there we go. I've got those done. Now the face looks actually pretty well shaded. Let's go to the hands as well. One thing that I must recommend though, when it comes to shading and adding values and highlights, you're going to want to figure out where your source of light is coming from beforehand, because that makes things a lot easier. And so you also don't have like lighting coming from like over here, or down here, or it's like just everywhere. When I do my initial means of shading, I always focus on definition, so just areas that would get more light and more shadow in general. And then what I'm about to do next is where the need for the light is, where the need for figuring out where the light's coming from is required. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it into another folder. It's a pass-through layer, and I'm going to use actually no, my bad, I'm skipping steps. So we've got the skin done and everything. Let's do everything else. So I'm going to be focusing mostly on the leaf and the hair. We're not going to do the clothes because that's not really what I want to focus on right now. So I think I'm going to do let's do the leaf first. Actually, let's do the hair first, because we're go usually a good way to do it is go from bottom to top. So we go from the skin, then the eyes, then the hair, then what's this thing called? The leaf. Can't believe I forgot the red leaf. Then leaf. I'm not going to do the lip shading today on this one because it's my personal choice. I actually prefer to have this one this way, but just to add a little bit of value to the lips, because lips do actually get quite a bit of blood to them. Just gonna add a little bit of shading with the multiply layer. Now some people's lips actually have different colours. It doesn't always get the same amount of blood flow everywhere. Well, every person's lips, the amount of blood flow you get to them varies, and so people's lips can be different colours. I know mine personally are a little pinkish, so that's what I do. That's what I'm doing with this, and just a little bit of watercolour to change a little bit of the hue over here. There we go. I'm not going to do much of this. I'm going to do a little bit of screen layer as well. I'm being very contradictory to myself today. Like I said before, art in general is a process. It's not per se a set way of doing things. It's not like a science, it's not like a recipe. You can't really figure out how you're going to do it beforehand. You just have to sort of work with what you have. And then whatever situation arises, that's what you get. So you've got all that, and now let's go for the hair. Now when it comes to the hair, it's particularly a little weird for me because of the fact that the way I the way I do hair is constantly changing. It's not difficult per se, but it just depends purely on the drawing. Alright, now that we've got that done, all the hair is properly coloured in, what I'm going to do next is, this is where all the hard stuff, and where all the magic happens and where it starts to get a little bit difficult. So, I usually start, again, with another multiply layer. So this is pass through. Multiply, same colour, but, but I use a texture brush. I just start with a little bit of I start branching out from the bottom, from the roots. And I go along the lines of the hair. Now that that's done, I'm going to take the watercolor brush and I'm going to slightly blend some of them, just a little bit, not a lot, just blend them a little bit. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm going to go on another multiply layer again, swapping the colours, and I'm actually going to go for a deeper colour, using the texture brush again, slightly smaller, and we're going to go really deep into this part of the hair, well, literally the part. Okay, now that that's set out, I'm going to focus on the rest of it. So, take it up a little bit, and we're going to combine everything, all the multiply layers, everything's all together in one, and we're going to focus now solely on the lines. Okay, so now I'm going to go and do the highlights in the hair. We're going to use a slightly bit more greenish blue colour, but I'm going to use a screen layer and I'm going to put it over the top. And what we're really going to look for is going between the lines where I've shaded already and just adding that sort of value between the two. Now I'm going to use a luminosity layer, and I'm going to actually go for a little deeper blue this time, and go right in the middle of the areas that I've used. I'm going to use a normal brush this time so I can get those clean strokes. I don't want any texture in this one. Awesome, I've got all that down. I've got now I just take in and get the eyebrows. Leave it on the same layer as the other ones, but use a slightly darker color because most people have brownish eyebrows, or their eyebrows are the same color as the rest of their hair. So I'm going to use a texture brush for this one again. I'm just going to fill in the eyebrows a little bit. Oops, snap, I forgot. Let's put it on a multiply layer. There we go. We're just going to fill in the eyebrows and make sure that it keeps its texture. And there we go. And now I'm just going to quickly do the leaf in just a little bit. Alright, now that you've got that leaf done, this is where all the magic happens, and it's personally my favorite part, because it looks a little flat, don't you think? It's a little less vibrant. So what we're going to do is it's a new folder, going to use the overlay, luminosity, and multiply layers, just to add a little bit more spice to it, I guess. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to use the multiply layer, and we're just going to quickly add in some darker areas. Going to use, actually no, let's not use the warmer color, going with a cooler color, and use that blue. And I'm just going to fill in areas on the face. This is where you really need to know where the lighting is coming from. I'm going to take the lighting like centrally in front of the face. Actually, there's a better way to do this. If I just hold on. Let's use the paint bucket tool. We can just fill in all the areas that we need to. It seems a bit lazy, I know, but at the same time it actually helps a lot. It fills in certain areas that you need more precision in, and it's a lot quicker. So there's no shame in using the paint bucket tool, it helps a lot. Just fill that in there. And then fill in the rest of the parts I need. Oops, turn down the size. But fill in the rest of the parts I need to fill in with just a normal brush. Especially get the hair up there. Fill that. So just to see if I missed a few bits, this is a really good idea. I'm going to turn it into a normal layer, and that really helps to see if you've missed anything. See, like I've missed in part of the hair, and I've missed towards the bottom of the hair as well over here. And there's quite a few parts that I missed, so turning it into a normal layer, even if it's like a low opacity, just really helps for you to figure out what parts you've missed. It's not really all that important for this part specifically to have all of it colored in, because you'll see later. But when you put it back to a multiply layer, it still sticks by itself and you can't really tell. But it's still better to have more coverage anyways, because it's just better work ethic. Let's just clean that up a little bit. Clean up the edges. There we go, let's put it back to a multiply layer now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to erase away certain areas. Let's create lighter area like right there on the bridge of the nose, just areas in general where you're going to receive more light. I personally like to erase the multiply around the eyes, like to have the eyes glow just a little bit. Let's get up the eyebrow over there, especially the forehead, definitely the forehead, because the forehead catches a lot of light, like a lot of it. Right, on the cheekbones as well, the cheekbones catch quite a bit of light as well. I'm personally using the lighting that's coming directly in front of the person, so it's not going to be really angled in certain places. Let's get down on the hand. Actually, let's do the hair first. Finish off the forehead. Okay, let's get the areas in the hand that will stand out the most, usually on the edges of the fingers. And right on that part of the hand as well. Oh, missed the spot. There we go, fill that in. And now just the bridges on the leaf, the areas on the leaf that's standing up. You're going to go like all over the entire piece, so it's not just in certain areas, it's everywhere that you want to have more light, or for the shadows to not be, or just to have the highlights more prominent. So now I'm just going to blend that in a little bit, just erase a little bit somewhere around there, and then afterwards just blend it, erase a little bit more. There we go. And now we're just going to blend in everything else. Right there. And just make this softer so it's not so abrupt and it's a little sloppy as well. Definitely blend in around the hair so it fades in towards the lighter areas. Get the leaf as well. almost done. And there we go. Let me got all that filled in. Just reduce the opacity. There we go, change the opacity just right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an overlay layer, and I'm actually going to go with a warmer color. Just get the color from the leaf with warmer color, and I'm going to paint it in the overlay layer. Right, cool. Just filling that little bit over there, and there we go. Got the overlay. Let's change the opacity of it quite a bit, because there we go. And just erase certain parts of it as well. Again, over the lighter areas that we had erased before. The forehead, parts of the hair, and you'll see why in a moment. Let's just get over there. Especially on the hair, because since they're complementary colors, the colors don't mix very well, they make it sort of brownish. So I want to keep it only in areas where I want it to be really dark. So I'll take the watercolor tool, and again we're just going to blend everything in together so it doesn't look so sloppy. Let's change the luminosity of the overlay layer again, and I think actually let's change the hue of that, make it a bit colder. And there we go, let's go for a more violet color. There we go. Right, and I think that's all there is to it. Should change the luminosity layer just a little bit more again. Also like sometimes just to add a little bit of glow to the eyes. It's a personal preference. It just sort of draws you towards the eyes more. The eyes are like the windows to the soul, so I really like it when the eyes tend to pop out. Alright, and I believe, yeah, so we've got everything all together, all down, and this is my full process of what I do. I'm not going to do the clothes just yet because we're not really focusing on that, but if you, and besides the process is always changing in essence, because of the fact that being an artist isn't about having a set way of doing things. You're always changing, your process is always changing. You're always finding out new styles and new ways of doing things, and that's just part of art. It's a journey, in essence, to figure out what you can do better, or what things you just like more. So yeah, that's my tutorial. I hope you liked it. If you want to see any more tutorials, then just leave it down in the comments of what you'd like to see. If you liked this video, then leave a like, please. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!